Mike's music method. We've all heard this before.
Practice your major scales. You always gotta practice them right when you wake up in the morning. Drink your coffee and work on your major scales. They're important to do. Practice them all the time.
But in this video, you're going to actually learn what a major scale is, how it's constructed, how to play it on the guitar, and just why it's cool and important to know. The first thing you need to understand is that in Western music we use 12 notes. E, F, F sharp, G, G sharp, A sharp, B, C, C sharp, D, D sharp. Any given major scale will only use 7 of those 12 notes. But which 7? Alright, in order to learn that, we have to break down our understanding of intervals. Now, intervals are the distance between one note and the next note. The smallest interval in music is called a half step. It's also a minor second. A half step is simply going from one fret to the next. It's a half step, so the third fret to the fourth is going up a half step. Or I can go from the second fret to the first. That's a half step going down. I can also go open to the first fret. That's also a half step. Or you can call it a minor second. Now, when you combine two half steps, we call that a whole step, right? So H for half, and now a whole step is going 2 frets, going from the first fret to the third is a whole step. It's also known as a major second. So going from 5 to 7 is a whole step. Going from 8 down to 6 is a whole step. So there are more intervals, but those are 2 types of steps, and that's enough to understand the major scale. Look, there's our pattern. Whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. The way I remember it is 1, 2, half, 1, 2, 3, half. The easiest way to visualize this scale is to play it on one string of the guitar. So I'm going to play it on my low E string. Now remember, we start with any given note. That's an E. Now I'm going to go a whole step. That means 2 frets. That second fret is F sharp. Do, re. Then I go another whole step to the 4th fret. That's G sharp. Do, re, mi. And here's my half step. Only 1 fret up to the 5th. Open 2, 4, 5. Do, re, mi, fa. Then I go up another whole step, which is 2 frets, to the 7th fret. Then another whole step to the 9th. Another whole step to the 11th fret, and then a half step to the 12th. And you put it all together. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. Now, that's impractical to play it on one string, so we play it across several strings, and you can do it in different octaves. Right? A whole bunch of places you can play it on the guitar. And we'll get to that later, but at first, to understand the scale, it's easier to see it on one string, to see the relationship between the distances of all of those different intervals. Now let's break down the intervals. A great way to do it, and a simplest way, is to just use numbers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. No matter what key I do it in, that was in the key of G, but if I go back to that low E string, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Now we have our root, our major second, our major third, our 4th is called perfect, our 5th is perfect. We have a major 6, a major 7, and we're back to the root. So if you notice, a major scale has only major intervals and perfect intervals. It doesn't use any minor intervals. And again, it's just the language that we use. And now you know what a major third is, right? So if we go to our third note, E to G sharp, that's a major third. Or it's always 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, a note that is 4 frets higher than another note is called a major third. So if I start on the 5th fret and I go up 4 frets to 9, That's a major third. Now you know what a major third is, and you can always find it. And the same thing goes with all of the intervals, right? So that that if I go to the 7th fret, that B, E to B, is a perfect fifth. And there's 7 half steps apart, or 7 frets apart. To really get an understanding of this, you have to do it. The first thing you should do is write down every musical note. Right? So on the top line here, I started with A. Now there's 2 ways to write all 12 notes. You can use the language of sharps. Sharp means 1 fret higher, 1 key to the right. And flat means 1 key lower. So if you write them all down using sharps, you have A sharp, B, C, C sharp, D, D sharp, E, F, F sharp, G, G sharp. The important thing to remember is that B and E do not have sharps. Don't be sharp. But that isn't because they're special or that interval is any different, right? It's still a half step. Those were all half steps that we wrote on that first line there. The only reason B and E don't have a sharp is because music theory was invented by piano players. And when you look at a piano, there aren't black keys in between those notes. But that, again, that's not because it sounds different or the interval is different than a half step. It's just so that your hands can more easily play the piano. And that when you look at a piano, you can more easily visualize it. So don't get hung up on that. I did as a guitar player. I was very confused. I thought B going straight to C, not having a sharp, meant that it was like a different interval or something. And it confused me for a long time. But it isn't. It's still a half step. An annoying convention as a guitar player, I know. Now the second way to write it is with the flats. A, can you read it? Yeah. A, B flat B, C, D flat D, E flat E, F, G flat G, A flat. Same situations apply where the E and the F, you don't have the flat, and the B to the C, right? Now, I think you guys all understand the difference between a sharp and a flat, but I will show you that that's the same thing. So this is C, the 3rd fret of the 5th string. This is C sharp. This is D. But I can also call that 4th fret D flat. So it has 2 names, C sharp and D flat. And now you should practice on your own. Maybe do the same thing on the 5th string, the A string, and go whole, whole, half, whole, whole, whole. Find that pattern and write down the notes, and then go online and double check to see if you're right. And that's a major scale. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. Now the only issue you might run into, besides finding a baby, is that you'll get the convention wrong. But this is good, it's how you learn. Now the top method is using flats. And you'll notice that it's incorrect. Because I have both D flat and D, and there's no C. So that's the only reason there are flats and sharps. That would be confusing to sight read, and it's confusing for a lot of reasons. Now the bottom one is correct. It's a system of sharps. You can see we have all the letter names, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, with sharps. Again, if you find yourself using some that are flats and are sharps, or vice versa, and it's wrong, you'll realize that because you'll see 2 of the same letter. Or you'll notice on the top one there is no F. Right? We have E straight to G flat and A flat. So that's how you know when you're wrong, and you can just simply correct it and get the convention right.
Mike's music method.